Morris and Scott Boland there?
Yeah, all going well. I think from the moment they've sort of hit the ground back from India from the World Cup, focus has been purely on recovering and preparing and getting their workloads up to be ready to go for the obviously elevated levels that you need to be able to bowl in Test cricket. So yeah, full expectation they'll be fit and firing.
Yes, thank you.
Luke Duffy.
Thanks, Cole. Hi, George. I guess most of the talk from fans, at least, has been about David Warner and his last summer. Why do you think he is still the best opener to at least start the summer?
Ultimately, we still think he's in our best 11 players to win the first test. I think Test cricket, in terms of the way the World Test Championship points is set up, is each test is critical. There's points on the line for each and every game. So our focus is very much on picking the 11 that we think can do the job. And obviously there's roles within that for each individual and how that actually structures up the team as a whole. And we think David is the right person for that for this test.
Nick Savage.
Thank you, Cole. G'day, George. Just on Lance, is he just there basically as a like-for-like replacement for Mitchell Starc, or is there potential for him and Mitchell to both be in the same starting 11?
Yeah, I think there's potential for it. Let's interestingly with quicks, everyone tends to look at it as a bunch, and like, you know, if one comes out, then there's a running line that there'll be one that comes in. But I think much like the batting lineup or the team as a whole, it's about how that functions and what you actually want from each bowler, depending on the surface that you're on and who you're playing against and what you actually need from the team. So, clearly both of those guys are our quickest bowlers in Mitch and Lance. So there's some similarities there, but I think as Lance continues to develop, there's no reason why they couldn't both play in the same team.
Sure thing. Thanks, George. Cheers.
Dan Brettig.
G'day, George. You mentioned about Dave being in the best 11 as far as the selectors are concerned. Like, do you think, given his, I suppose, record and longevity, is that going to remain the case so long as he is available for selection, irrespective of his scores, or does he have to make some runs in Perth?
No, it's been the ongoing story, hasn't it? That clearly Dave's would like to get through the series and finish up in Sydney, and fully respect that and understand that from a playing point of view. I think we've been pretty consistent, around the fact that with any player, performance-wise, it's how they perform as an individual, and then how that performance actually fits into the function of the team, and that won't change. There's a number of reasons why. We get the advantage, I guess, of having a home test series and being able to sort of name a squad test by test, and not specific to Dave. I think all players, it's about performing and how that fits into the team that'll determine the makeup of a side in any given test.
And just one on, obviously there's a lot of commentary today about a Mitchell Johnson column and a few things he's had to say about Dave and yourself, and I suppose the function of the selectors. Have you read it, and have you got any response to it?
No, I've been sent little snippets of it. Well, I hope he's okay.
Dan Cherny.
Thanks, George. Just on that, I mean, do you think does that comment suggest that you think Mitch is not okay if he's making such bold statements like that?
I've got no idea.
No, fair enough. And what about the Prime Minister's 11 match? Can you sort of discuss the importance of that as we look towards the West Indies tests in particular, and also the timing, which has been sort of a point of conjecture given the start of the Big Bash League, and how much of a role how do you strike that balance between the importance of the BBL and removing key players from the start of it?
Yeah, well, we see this game as being really important. I think we've made a real effort to, and I know this game's under the banner of the PM's 11 game, but it's trying to make it as close to an Australia A game as we can, and not every PM's 11 necessarily gives you that opportunity, but it's going to be a quality opposition. And I think given one of the challenges we often have throughout the summer is that there's a test team playing test cricket and there's not necessarily the opportunity for players to be playing some red ball at the same time. So, I think there's always, the team's always morphing and changing in different directions, but there's clearly some opportunities in the short to medium term. And, we've been really clear since around the Ashes that we view this as a really important game, great opportunity for players to put their best foot forward. I think there will be a couple of guys who'll miss a big bash game, but in terms of those individuals who are playing that game and the opportunities it will provide by having another really strong performance, and all of them have performed really strongly domestically and have played either Test cricket or Australia A cricket previously. So they're all pretty handy players. I think if you ask them, they'd be really keen for the opportunity, and hopefully we'll look back in a period of time, and there'll be a number of them that'll be able to say that the way they performed against a test quality outfit was a real key reason why they had the confidence and had the performances on the board to get selected in Test cricket.
Thanks, George.
All right.
Thanks, Cole. Hey, George, just about selection itself, especially with the fast bowlers. Like, how do you draw the balance? I mean, no disrespect to the opposition you have this home summer, but how do you draw the balance between just going per test in terms of selection and the whole transition of blooding in a Lance Morris maybe against the West Indies, for example, and looking at what you have ahead in the next 12 months?
Oh, I think Andrew McDonald sort of spoke to that earlier in the week. Or last week, so it's Sunday, isn't it? I don't think you necessarily have to do too much future proofing in Test cricket, and I think also, particularly as I said, the way that the Test World Championship points are set up, where each test is critical, and each test has points on the line. I think you've got to respect the players' desire to play Test cricket, and I'm not sure how the flip side of that argument is looking one of those players in the eye and telling them that they're not playing a test, or you're devaluing a test because of a perceived opponent. I don't think you ever know what an opponent's going to be like until you're actually playing. So I think that's first and foremost that. And I think you've just got to respect the fact that everyone who plays Test cricket is desperate to be there. I think we've seen across the last couple of years, there's often opportunities that do open up in the fast bowling space. And if and when they do, we're really comfortable with the guys that we've had. We've got obviously Scott and Lance in this squad, and a number of other guys that have been in and around that Test squad for a number of years.
If I could ask you about the opener, I mean, moving forward, once David Warner does retire, I mean, there's been a lot of talk of like people being pushed up the order, like Manas, Labuschagne. Like, just as a selector personally, do you prefer that? I mean, are you okay with that, or are you one of those who believes that a specialist opener is what works in Test cricket?
I think you've got options. So I think how you structure up your team, you've always got options how you do that. Clearly, it's as far as the batting lineup goes, opening is clearly a specialist position, but we've seen. I think, again, Andrew spoke to a number of occasions where that's players have moved from other positions to open in the past. We've used Travis Head there in subcontinent conditions. So I think that's an option. I think whenever you're trying to put all that together, what you are trying to do is just put the 11 and put the batting lineup together that you think will be the most effective for that match.
Thank you.
Jack Painter.
Hey, George. We saw Jai Richardson's return last week in the Shield, hardly missed a beat. Where's sort of he in the fast bowlers queue at the moment, and sort of how long before you sort of consider him back in the frame for Test selection?
Yeah, just thrilled to see him back, and excited to see the way that he impacted as quickly as he did. I think he's showed he's unfortunate the run of injuries he's had over the past couple of years. But the one thing he has done is every time he's come back, he's impacted straight away. So there's clearly a high skill level there. we like, and yeah, we're as excited as I'm sure he is, and Western Australia, and all the Jai Richardson fans out there that he's back playing. He's one that I guess I reference when talking about guys who have been around the Test squad in the past. So you throw him into that sort of that bunch of guys who are in the frame for opportunities going forward, and that includes Scott and Lance, Jai. Michael Nisa, they've all had opportunities, or we're excited about the opportunities they may get in the future.
Just one more quick one, if I can, on Cam Green and Alex Carey in the runs last week in the Shield. That must be pleasing, having not played a lot of cricket over the last month and a bit with the World Cup. What was the message to those guys going back into their respective states?
No real message. Just trying to work out their plan and what they felt like their best preparation was in terms of building up to the Test series. They both were aware that they were going to be in the squad, so it was just working with them and the States to see how it fitted and where it worked. So yeah, thrilled for both of them. I thought watched every ball of both their innings and thought they looked really good. Thought Kez was excellent behind the stumps. So yeah, both really going well, and thrilled with where they're at.
Chloe.
Hey, George. Probably an easy one. I wondered what you have made of Lance Morris's return from back injury, and he's had quite the return to domestic cricket this summer.
Yeah, he's been great. I mean, we clearly like the skill set there and have done for a little while. Unfortunate injury for him over the winter, and he's had to work really hard to get back playing, and he's feeling really good, and bull at a gate in terms of wanting to get out there and play, as all players are. So just working with him to I think as a player, you naturally you're living in the moment and you're trying to project forward with Lance, and where we sort of see him, we were trying to get him to work backwards a little bit and try and get his mindset around what does if an opportunity arises throughout the summer, what does it look like for him to be at his absolute best and cherry ripe, and respecting the fact that he has come off a back stress fracture, which is clearly a pretty debilitating and challenging injury to get over. But thrilled to see how he's progressed through the games that he has played for Western Australia. I think he's got better and better each and every opportunity. I know he's referenced in the past how much he loves being around the Australian team, and particularly around those senior fast bowlers who he learns a lot from and loves being around. So always excited. It's it's a unique skill set. I think you can always lots of areas where players can get better and improve, but having that absolute raw speed is pretty unique.
Thanks,
Thank
Chloe. We'll go to Roger, and we'll come back to Andrew and Luke. Roger.
Thanks, Cole. I'm just wondering, George, Alex Carey obviously dropped for the World Cup. How much of a discussion was that around him and Josh Inglis as to what you did with the Test squad?
Zero discussion. I think we've consistently said that we separate out the formats, and there's no link at all between the one-day team and the Test team. I think Kez has sort of spoken about the fact that he was found a bit of a weird World Cup, and at times he was frustrated, and fully respect that. And I imagine anyone who was in that World Cup squad who ended up missing out playing in the final 11 would have been disappointed. But I think for Kez and Marcus Stoinis in particular, who have played such a large part in that team in the build-up, I thought the way they worked their backsides off was so positive around the group. Were able to have a positive impact even though they weren't playing. I thought that spoke volumes about both, and in particular Kez, the way he did that throughout the whole tournament. And I think for anyone who knows Alex, they'll probably say, well, that's what you'd expect. That's the type of person he is, and that's the player that we love. So no, we've as we said, he batted beautifully this week. Fully expect he's going to have a wonderful summer.
Andrew.
Yeah, hi, George. I was wondering how much consideration you're giving to getting Cameron Green back into the side higher up the order, maybe at number 4, so Green and Mitch Marsh could both be in the same 11.
Yeah, I think he's a quality player. He's a young player, and I think anytime you sort of see someone who you think is going to have a big impact across a long period, particularly when they're going well, that's a great sign for the group. It puts some internal pressure on the guys to perform who are in there, because you've got a really great player who's ready to go should the opportunity arise. And I expect that from Cam going forward. I think there's some flexibility around where he can bat. So that's another great feather in his cap. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to sort of project where you see the summer going. There's plenty of things that can happen that are out of your control. But I imagine that it won't be too long before we see him back in the Test team.
Luke.
I was going to ask a similar sort of question, but I guess just on Mitch, how impressed were you with the sort of back end of the Ashes, and how quickly has he become a really important player in this team? I guess after what looked like he may not get back into it.
Yeah, fantastic last few tests, and I think back to that sort of first point I made around the role that you play within the team, and how your individual performance can play a larger function in how you want the group to perform and play. And I think Mitch exemplifies that whenever he plays for Australia. He's very much a team man and does what the team needs. So great to see that. Looking forward to seeing him get an opportunity back in Australia, and hopefully he continues that form on.
Looks like we've got one more here, folks. Lachlan Harper.
Yeah, Will Pukowski said recently he wants to concentrate on playing the next 2 Sheffield Shield seasons. George, has there been much communication with him during his comeback from concussion?
No, there hasn't. No, just really happy to see him back playing Shield cricket, and hopefully that continues. I saw Will's comments, I think, post this last Shield game on the back. I think that's 5 in a row he's played now. So let's fingers crossed that he can finish the year off. He's talking about there's a real love for the game at the moment, and he's keen to go and play overseas in the winter, which would be, I think, great for his game, and just that continuity of cricket will be great for him.
Sorry, we do have a couple more here. Sam.
G'day, George. Just going back to one of your previous questions, you corrected yourself when you said that Andrew McDonald spoke last week. Does that mean you consider Sunday the start of a new week?
Is it not?
Well, it's the weekend, isn't it? So it's the end of the week.
I don't know. We don't do weekends in this role, mate. It's just the what is it? 6 days before the test? No, more than that.
Just on the Perth pitch, what are you expecting out of that? And is there any possibility that we can see 4 fast bowlers over there?
No real expectations. I think it's pretty consistent. Hopefully you get a wicket with a bit of life in it. I assume with that question, are you inferring leaving out Nathan Lyon, or?
Yes.
Yeah. No.
Thanks, George.
Got another one here from Dan Brady. Dan.
George, just one. Obviously, one of the things that Mitch Johnson talked about was this closeness between the selectors and the players. Are you able to just talk through your kind of philosophy in terms of why that openness of communication and I guess proximity to the team is important from your perspective? Because I guess we had for years players saying we don't hear from selectors or the communication's not good, whereas now it seems that the accusation is, they're too close.
To be honest, I don't think now's probably the appropriate time to go into it. My only question would be, or observation would be, if someone can show me how being distant and unaware of what players are going through and what the plans are with their team and with the coaching staff, how that's more beneficial, I'll be all ears.
Sure. And just one last one, I guess the top order going forward. In terms of Dave, and I guess the role that he's played over that time, obviously he's shown a willingness to put pressure on bowlers. Some of the Shield pitches so far this season have been pretty tough ones as far as batting against a moving ball is concerned. I mean, how much do you look for that particular element in young batters coming through, the ability to put pressure on a good bowling attack?
I think it's important. I think one thing you're aware of is your assumption would be Test cricket is not going to be easier to score than domestically, and the other challenge you get in Test cricket is that you're playing on a much broader range of surfaces and countries and opposition, and you're faced with a hell of a lot of challenges. So the ability to be able to work through those and still find a way to score, whether that's on tough batting wickets or spinning batting wickets or slow wickets where all the fielders are in front, whatever it might be, that's one of the challenges that all the batsmen face, and ultimately you find the best ones have the most efficient and consistent methods of doing that. And I think more broadly to David, if whenever this Test career does finish up, I think you've got to respect the way that he has been able to do that, and I think some of the beneficiaries of that are often the people who are batting up the other end with him or coming in after him. And that ability to put the opposition under pressure is pretty special, and not to be taken lightly. Also, I think whenever you've had someone who's had that longevity and been so dominating in a role, is just to temper the expectations of whoever's going to be the replacement there. And I think back to Warney finishing up as a spinner, and how many spinners got brought in and shuffled out in the quest to almost try and replicate Warney. And I don't think you ever try and replicate someone who's played a role for as long as someone has, and done it as well as they have. And I'd put David in that category, the way he's opened the batting for Australia for such a long period of time. So that's something that we're certainly conscious of, and making sure that fit post David is the right one.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Roger, did you have one last question there, mate?
Yeah, just you got asked before about Nathan Lyon, George, and Perth. And we understand, you'll go with a 3-1 combination. Just wondering with Lance, where he is in your thoughts for that first, second Test team. Is he there in the squad? We'd all assume from the outside that it's going to be the three mainstays, but how much of a chance is he to be a bolter and get in that first, second Test team, do you think, with what he's showing you?
The second team will obviously deal with. The first team, it's unlikely, given the three we've got. But that's not to say there's no benefit to having him in the squad and around and being part of that group. I think there's enormous benefit, as I said, for Lance to be in the Australian squad, to be around those fast bowlers, to be around Dan Vittori and Andrew McDonald, and just being having access to that and being a part of it. So whenever that opportunity does arise, he feels as comfortable as he can, and hopefully he can make that transition to just rolling out and playing as easy and as comfortable and as a Test debut may be. So again, I think there's not so much. The one thing I would say about the fast bowlers, clearly Scott and Lance are in this first Test squad, but we've talked about Jai Richardson, we've talked about Michael Neser as well. It's not necessarily a like for like running line. It's about what the function of the bowling group needs for any particular Test and how it actually works together. But confident that any of those guys, should the opportunity arise, I think they do a wonderful job.
Thanks, Roger. Looks like that's all the questions here for George. So thanks everyone for joining, and thanks to George for giving up his time on a Sunday to chat to everyone, and we'll catch everyone next time. Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the week, Sammy.
Thanks.
Thanks, Cole. Thanks, George.
Thanks, Cole. Thanks, George.
Yes.